Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Christa of Practical Astros. I am here to host the Astera Sophia Kairos Weekly Astro Forecast. Today, we have a special guest, Jeanine Lineback. You may know her on X, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, Facebook as J Lineback, but Jeanine is an astrologer. She's an astrology student. She's been practicing and reading and studying astrology for a very long time. And I'm really happy to welcome Jeanine to the weekly forecast. Hi, Jeanine.
Hi, Krista. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, same. I love having new voices to talk about astrology, and I'm glad that you were game to join us this week. We are going to talk about 3 transits that are coming up this week. Our weeks are Wednesday to Wednesday. We kind of go through from one Mercury day to the other, so our weeks are a little wonky, but there's reason for that. We're going to go through these 3 that are happening within this Wednesday to Wednesday week, which is the Sun going into Pisces on the 18th of February, then Saturn, Neptune conjoining on the 20th of February, and then Venus trine Jupiter on the 22nd of February. I sent you these transits and dates before. Are there any that really stand out between these 3? Are there ones that are more exciting to you, Jeanine, or
Yeah, for
yeah?
sure.
Tell me about it.
So when I got these 3, the first thing I visualized just right off the bat was the sun ingressing into Pisces from Aquarius. And in Aquarius, we had the sun really shining the light on the community and humanity and this big group. And when I visualized it ingressing into Pisces, it was like, I don't know if you remember those old films where they would show a cobblestone street with old gas lamps. And the gas lamps lit up the street, but only to the point where you could see right in front of your feet. So it was a lot of light and shadow.
Yeah.
And to me, the sun going into Pisces, it's like we're kind of going inward, but yet we know there's all this stuff going on in the bigger spiritual human world as well. So both in our inner spiritual world, but also in the outer spiritual world. But it's a lot of diffuse light, very spread out to where you can't focus on one thing because there's just so much. It's like
Yeah.
all over. It's kind of just spread out. So like the gas lamp on the streets would just be kind of a glow that kind of made like a fog. And so there was lots of shadow, like I'm sure you've seen pictures of San Francisco when the fog rolls in off the bay. And everything's kind of fuzzy. You can see that there's probably ships coming in to dock and such, but you can't really make them out and you can't really see what kind they are. It's just kind of a lot of light and shadow. And that's the vision that came to me, if you will, when I first just instantly in my mind when sun going into Pisces, like we're going a little more internal. And yet we know that there's all this stuff going on around us. And spiritually, it's like we can feel it. Just like
Yeah.
you can feel fog when it's real heavy and thick, you can feel it, but you can't necessarily see clearly through it. But we
Yeah.
get surprises later on that help us, I think.
Well, I mean, also just to think about, Pisces is a water sign. It's ruled by Jupiter, which expands
Yes.
with Venus as the exaltation ruler. So there's this like expanded connection that's just inherent in Pisces anyway. And so the sun coming in there, it does illuminate that inherent expansive connection. And I love the idea of that fogginess. In my mind, I'm thinking of like old film noir
Yeah,
pictures,
exactly.
that you see like where the light is cast, and within that light, within those movies, you have this intensity and longing and passion and things happening in the shadows, and
Exactly.
it is that Piscean dream place. Pisces is the
Exactly.
final sign in the zodiac. We're looking at coming up at the zodiacal new year with Aries, the ingress of the spring equinox in the
hmm
northern hemisphere when the sun ingresses into Aries. So this is like that final chapter before we begin again in that zodiacal year. So there's
Yeah, and
lots
it's
of reminiscence and
mhm.
and getting lost in memory and looking back and kind of looking inward and doing that reflection and that categorization in that emotional, spiritual way. So I love that vision that you had.
Yeah,
I'm a
that's exactly what I was seeing and feeling about it, you know?
I put the chart up of the sun going into Pisces. For my location, it's a Taurus rising, but we have the sun going into Pisces. The north node is closest at 8 degrees, but then Venus is there at 10, the moon is there at 14, and Mercury is there at 18. So we have like all of the personal planets, really. I mean, Mars is in Aquarius still, but all of the really close, fast moving planets are all there with the north node and the sun when the sun ingresses, which is kind of nice,
Yeah, no kidding.
honestly.
Yes, I agree. It's kind of that same pile up we started with in, back all the way to Capricorn, then into Aquarius, and eventually Mars will come in as well. It's the same group of characters.
Yeah, yeah, it's like the sun leads the way and all like the little smaller planetary animals that run around the sun. It's like a pack of dogs that just follow the sun wherever it moves because Venus and Mercury can only get so far, if there's not a retrograde,
Exactly. Or
and
Mother Duck and her
right,
ducklings.
yeah, that's what it's like. A mother duck and her ducklings feels very sun Pisces.
That's what I thought of.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Welcome to Pisces season, everyone. But now that we're in Pisces season, we're going to talk about Aries because
Mm, yeah.
the big, like world changing transit that we have been getting closer and closer to is Saturn and Neptune conjoining in Aries 2 days after the sun goes into Pisces on the 20th. Now, Saturn had dipped into Aries last year from May 24th to September 1st. It moved in, Neptune was there, so they got close. We had a little bit of taste of what that meant, and you can experience it in the area of life that Aries is for you. So depending on what your rising sign is, depends on what house or topic of life Aries speaks. So we got a little taste of it, but this is Saturn and Neptune coming together and actually being at the same space from our perspective. So they're conjoining and they're merging all of their significations together in this moment. So broad picture, Jeanine, what do you think about Saturn and Aries outside of conjoining anything? Like what are your words for just Saturn
Well,
and
I think it feels like the brakes and the gas at once, you
Mhm.
put both feet on both pedals at the same time instead of using one foot to hit one at a time.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a sense of, I really want to move forward now. Wait a minute. You can't.
Mm. Mhm.
Why? I can't. Why? Like it's kind of like the kid that wants to go to the park right this minute, but you told them they have to eat lunch first and they keep with one. I mean, I used to be the kid that had, half my butt off the chair at lunch because I'm ready to go to the playground. And my mom would say, well, you have to eat your lunch first, or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like, but, I'm halfway out of the chair still,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think we're going to feel that. I think we're going to feel that if we don't already. I already feel it, honestly. But, I think that's what it's going to be like. Saturn and Aries is Aries wants to go. It's ruled by Mars. Saturn is fallen here, so it doesn't have as much dignity, have the strength to put a hold on things the way it might in other areas of your chart. But yet, this is being ruled by Mars, which is in Aquarius still at this point. So Mars is raring to go. Aries, let's get up
Mhm.
and get it going. But
Yeah.
Saturn is like, no, wait, we got to take our time. We need to learn the lessons. We need to be disciplined. We need to think this through. But yet it's not very strong. So there's going to be that pull.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was thinking about, I know a lot of people that have in their charts Saturn and Aries. So I get a sense of what that is like in someone's life. And when it's transiting the sky and we all experience it in that part of our own charts, it gets diffused in all sorts of different ways.
Hmm.
But then just thinking of the archetype of Saturn in a fallen place. So if we think of an exaltation as being like set up in a high throne, guest of honor, people bring treats and all this exquisite stuff, the best of people bring the best. It's like being a celebrity. You're a
Hmm.
celebrity, people just bring their best versions of themselves to you. And it may not be what you would choose on your own, but it's freely given to you with like adoration. And that in itself, it can be kind of stifling of like, I just want to make my own choice. That's a planet in its own home, its own domicile, gets to just make its own choice.
Hmm.
Planet Exalted kind of gets things just given to it with ease. And so a planet that is opposite that is like, it has fallen from that graceful throne. It is in a place of, I'm on my own. And if anything, an Aries placement can often feel like you're on your own, that you need to adventure off
Mhm.
and to discover new things because you're not satisfied with what is there, that you like that challenge, you like that dare, you like that feeling of I already feel like I'm an outsider because I like being on the edge of things. I like seeing the frontier. And so Saturn, which is a planet of mastery and it embraces the lengths of time it takes to become a master of anything, when it's fallen in Aries, this driven, often impulsive place of Aries, it is conflicting. And before we started recording, we were talking about this feeling of like glitchiness and disruption
Mhm.
and not really sure, like things don't quite feel aligned. And it's almost like we're embodying this odd placement of a fallen Saturn. But
Yeah, exactly.
the visual I got from it was imagine any sort of zombie movie. At the beginning of a zombie movie or a zombie TV show, you have a character that might have a lot of talent that has led up to that point where they were like a police officer, ex military, whatever it is. Like they have a history of skill behind them. And that's coming in handy in this moment. But this moment, all bets are off. You don't know what's going on with the whole world or outside of your normal world. And you are maybe outside of where you are familiar with, right? Most zombie movies or TV
Mhm.
shows, you're like having to go places that you were unfamiliar with the terrain, where things are, if supplies are available, if there's ammunition, if there's safe harbor, if you're the people around you are allies or enemies. You have to figure it all out on your own. And that's how a Saturn and Aries feels. It's like you may have a lot of skill, but in this moment, you have to like reinvent everything and you have to do it quickly. So it's like you're pulling on your own resources of skill, but you have to figure that out quickly. And with that quickness comes a lot of mistakes. And so I feel like
Exactly.
these early stage of Saturn and Aries. And maybe it was what we kind of started to figure out and fumble around back in May to September last year is that we made those early mistakes. Maybe this time we'll have a little bit better footing and then we can go forward. But then here's the monkey wrench is that it's with Neptune. So now we come to Saturn Neptune together. What's your take on Saturn with
Well,
Neptune now?
so now Saturn's got Neptune and they're merging, and Neptune is the dissolver, dissolves the boundaries, the structures, and you can work with Saturn in such a way to allow your intuition to speak, can also guide you. So there's a way that Neptune provides an empathy, an intuition, an intuitive feel for Saturn. If Saturn can say, okay, I'm going to go with the flow a little bit. I'm going to let go
Yeah.
of some of the control and not have Saturn be your controlling power and allow that Neptune to give you some intuition and provide you some guidance. There's a way that the two can merge that it can help Saturn loosen up a bit, to be
Yeah.
honest, and maybe relax enough to feel its way through the beginning stages of this Aries, area where it's not so comfortable.
It's striking that they're coming together at the 0 degree, which is called
Yeah,
the
that
Aries
is
point.
crazy. It's
So it,
crazy.
it does feel like, if Saturn is the limit and we find our limitations, like when you're like say your butt's half off the chair as you finish lunch and you run out to the
Yeah.
playground, you go out to the playground and if you want to start playing a certain game, a lot of times, if you're a kid with a stick and you like to get dirty like I did, you
Oh,
would kind
yeah.
of draw a big line like this is where the game's going to be. And
Uh-huh.
it's like creating that parameter, like this is what we're going to do. It's the setting out of
Mhm.
rules.
Mhm.
And then within that, then we can get that adventurous Neptunian action going where maybe it is a little bit more, it's softer, not in texture, but just in action in Aries. It's like the ways that we
Yes.
connect, it will be diffused. It will be kind of broken in a really beautiful way as opposed to just a jolted, ripped up kind of way. When I was
Well,
looking at these together, it's like when you go running and you have that tiny little microfractures when you run and your bones have these tiny little fractures that happen and your body fills it up with more calcium to fortify the bone. So it's like you need that diffusion and that fracturing a little bit so that you can
mhm.
actually become a stronger Saturnian skeletal structure. It's like we need that for the mastery
Right.
of Saturn, but in the immediate time, it might be hard to identify because Neptune is involved. Neptune just clouds in
Mhm.
in the moment. On reflection, you can often see it better, you know.
In a way, it's almost like Neptune is bringing in a little bit of that fog from what's left over in Pisces that it
Mm,
brought over with it, and it's clouding the skies a little. But at the same time, Neptune is so empathic, or can provide some intuitive and empathic knowledge for Saturn to rely on if they can work together, you know. But I think your point about the fractures, you know, if you think of the 0 point as an ending and a beginning, it's like, okay, you're starting brand new. I mean, the 0 point of Aries is like the beginning. Oftentimes we put Aries in the first house, right? And
mm,
we start the chart that way, even though the thema mundi starts with, you know, with Cancer.
Cancer, yeah.
Just a generic chart often will start with the 0 point of Aries. And it's like a springboard, but none of us knows what we're springing into. And so we almost have to trust that Neptunian piece to guide us. And Saturn's not so fine with that. But yeah, it's not empowered here. So it's got to rely on some other skills, some other helpers, some other ways of doing things.
Yeah. I think what you can do is first identify what house Aries is for you, and then look at the topics of that house. So, like if you're Aries rising, it's going to be more focused just on you. And think of your
Mm-hmm.
limitations, think of boundary lines, think of like
Mm-hmm.
territory, like annex that house to be like a separate thing. For Capricorn risings, it's your fourth. For Libra risings, it's your seventh. For Cancer risings, it's your 10th. Like from there, you can find your rising sign, what house is Aries for you, and work
Mhm.
during this transit, because we're going to have this for about another 2-ish years. It's going to be 2028 when Saturn moves into Taurus. And so creating a limit, creating either a time limit, a bandwidth limit of financial obligation, a limit of whatever, like find what the limitation is for you and know that those boundaries are going to be tested, especially with Neptune there to like try to dissolve it away. But a good thing of like creating the boundary line of I'm going to spend an effort of creating a boundary, which then will inadvertently build some sort of structure, either a discipline of a schedule. I mean, Saturn loves time. Saturn is all about time and death.
Yep. Mhm. Yep.
And, you know, I'm not a big fan of Saturn actually helping us build structure, but Saturn first starts that structure with drawing a line in the sand of like, this is where the game is going to be played. And if you try to build some sort of systems of accountability, self accountability, especially,
Yeah,
um,
discipline and accountability. I think
yeah, in that area of life, then you can survive that disillusion that Neptune will continue to try to make. You know, like it's just like fortify the fences in that house.
and have empathy, I think, is an important piece because
Mm,
Neptune provides the ability to have the empathy and say, okay, you know, the line wasn't held perfectly here,
yeah,
but we're going to start over.
we're gonna try again. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna just keep doing it. Just keep allowing Neptune to say, "Okay, I dissolved you a little bit, Saturn, you know, whatever." Like they're little characters in a movie
Mm-hmm.
here, and you know, you go back behind the line and you pick up your discipline again.
Yeah, or
Um,
it'd be like, you know what? That was an arbitrary line to begin with, and I like the line being drawn over here better.
exactly,
You know,
exactly,
so
exactly.
instead of a lot of times it'll be like if you first move into a house and you just like set some shit down in a part of a room, it just will stay there
Yeah,
for years, even though you didn't
correct.
intend it. So just because that was set there, and you can think of it like, say that you're Pisces rising and Aries is your second house. And we associate second house with skill and resource, but mostly it's like the money house, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
more nuance to the second house, but we think of money and we think of
Values, skills.
expenditures and we think of income. So like if you're Pisces rising and Saturn goes into your second house and you just, you know, you're working at a job because you've been working there for a long time, you know, having Neptune come and dissolve the ideas of a way around like, do you actually want to do this for income? Is this helping support you as the ascendant, as that first house? Is this
Right.
helping you make enough money? Like the Neptune there could actually be really helpful to dissolve away any like old plaque buildup around that house so that Saturn can then find where is the new boundary for it. So I think that because it's this Aries point, because it's in Aries, and because it's these two planets, we get to redefine lots of things for our immediate lives, for our family, community, cities, states, countries, hemispheres, for
Mhm.
ourselves in this moment. We all get to collectively do that.
We get to create it together, you
We
know?
do. Yeah, it is
Mhm.
all about this co-creation. And like the closer we get to it, the more excited I am for it.
Yes, I'm
Was
ready.
looking
I'm
at it
here for
last
it.
year, I was like, oh, good, yeah. It was just, it was
And
way
we heard
more.
so much about it too, so I think that's partly like, "Okay, it's almost here. Let's get there. Let's get there." That's how I
Yeah,
feel. I'm
yeah.
ready.
Well, we are recording this on February 11th, so we have a countdown of 9 days. So I think we're going to move on to the next transit. But comment on the video if you have anything in Aries or what house Aries is for you and what you're looking forward to. Or if you have any like memory of, that house of Aries for you, if anything started to change or dissolve or, be reformed back in that transit from 24th of May last year to September 1st. So it would be the all of summertime last year. What was changing or starting to kind of be disrupted a little bit in your Aries house? But then the final one that we're going to talk about is Venus trining Jupiter. So Venus is exalted in Pisces, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, and the two of them are going to trine. Back in August last year, we as a group talked about the conjunction. It happened on August 12th. This was the same day that there was some other stuff going on. So it was like, it was a complicated day.
Yeah.
But we had the conjunction on August 12th. And then they're cycled together. We can kind of look at it kind of like a lunar cycle where you have a crescent moon, the first quarter moon, waxing moon, full moon, waning moon, third quarter, and then a crescent again before it goes to new. So we're looking at it in that kind of a cycle. When they came together, we can kind of think of that as the new moon. They squared each other on November 2nd. They opposed each other, meaning Venus, because Venus is moving faster than Jupiter, she moved into the opposition on January 9th. That was like the full moon moment when Venus was in Capricorn, Jupiter was still in Cancer. Jupiter spends about a whole year in one sign. So now we're at this trine point. We had a trine on November 26th, and now we have another trine on February 2nd. And this is when they're in really beautiful positions themselves. Now, Jupiter is still retrograde. Jupiter is going to go direct fairly soon. But at this moment, she is exalted, he is exalted. They're trining together and they're kind of playing out the story that they've been playing out in the Cancer area specifically, but all the water signs have really been touched more predominantly as this transit's been going. And now we have it with Venus exalted, which is a much different, it's like the best position she can be in outside of being at home in Taurus or in Libra. So what are your thoughts on just
To
this
me, the
trine?
first thing that I thought of when I saw this trine, Venus applying to Jupiter, Venus is exalted, it's in Jupiter sign, all the things you said, romance. This is the romance right here. This
Yeah.
is like just ease of flow, of beauty, of good things. This is our breath of fresh air. We might have felt the glitchiness with, the Saturn, Neptune, or maybe a little confusion there or whatever. But here's a really good hug from somebody that cares the world about you, and we're all going to be together in this.
The
It's
moon's in
just,
Taurus too, which just is like
yeah,
is a cherry on
exactly.
top.
Yeah, that's where the good food comes in for the romantic dinner,
And the moon's exalted in Taurus, so it's
That's
just like
exactly
all
right.
around. Mm.
Yeah, all around goodness. And I think we're going to need it, and I think we're going to love it. I don't know how to put this, but when you go and it's a really hot summer day, I live in a hot state, so I live in Texas, so of course
Mhm.
I can identify with this. And that first plunge into the pool, it's like, how
Mhm.
refreshing. That's what this is going to be. It's going to be, we needed this. This feels so good.
Yeah. Well, and Mercury is very close too. Mercury's gonna go retrograde 4 days later. So Mercury's
Yeah, I know.
very still, slowing down. But to me, like Mercury in Pisces is this, yes, it is an exile, a place of exile and a place of being fallen. But of all the planets, like to be fallen here, it can be all the Mercury retrograde tropes that we experience, but to me, it's like it brings in the creativity,
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
poetic
Mhm.
line, like that curvy line that you kind of have to do when you're swimming in water. You can't just swim straight. Like the
That's
only
right.
time you swim straight at the ocean is when you're caught in a riptide and you just swim along the line of the
Those
coast because the water itself is going to move you in kind of a swimmy way back to safety. So it's like when you're in a watery place, you have to act like a watery creature. And
you
that's
have to go with the flow,
yes, yeah,
literally.
yeah. So I like that Mercury is also here during
Mm.
this.
I
Mercury and the Sun and the North Node are here witnessing this trine between the two of them.
Yeah, it's a great time for creativity, for music, for intuition, all the things that we sort of talked about at the beginning, right, Krista? Like, I mean, just let some flow happen here. I think it'll feel good.
Yeah. So just to refresh, to think, to look back. So if you can remember, middle of August last year, this is when Venus and Jupiter came together in Cancer. I think it was like 14 degrees. And then it's gone through this process of Venus is taking whatever seed was first planted then and starting to bloom it out. So think of the Cancer house. And then when she squared it in November, she was in Libra, so she was at home. So it's kind of like a positive square almost. Venus Jupiter
Mhm.
square with
Mm.
Venus at home, Jupiter exalted. The opposition January 9th, was opposing that place, Venus in Capricorn.
Mm.
I mean, Venus is a triplicity ruler of Capricorn, right? Because it's a an earth element, so it's of
Yes.
that dark
Mhm.
feminine sect. She's not other than that, she's not really well equipped in Capricorn. Very practical, very functional, and has really great taste. Venus and Capricorn does, but it's an opposition. It feels kind of like that film noir, feels very black and white versions of Venus there. But now she's in this trine place, which is about flow. So if you began something in August that maybe has gone through a couple of rewrites or versions or drafts, having this February 22nd date come in, it's like this is when the floodgates potentially could come through. And so maybe set yourself up for what day of the week is it? It's a Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
So if you have time to set aside to allow the flow to come through your fifth and speaking as a Scorpio rising, sorry, being a little selfish here.
Uh-huh.
Pisces is my fifth house, Cancer is my ninth house. So have the flow come through your Pisces and Cancer houses. Allow the space so that you can have that flow. Trines are supportive, but they're also about momentum. And momentum of water is like
Mhm.
the
Mm.
water, when water has momentum, it's
It's gonna
incredibly
move.
powerful. It's gonna
Yeah.
move, but it overall is being a really glorious day, especially with that exalted moon there.
Like I say, skip Valentine's and have it this day.
There you go. That's great.
Even if it's just going with the flow at home with your family, Jupiter and Cancer,
Mhm.
enjoying the love of the people closest to you, it's going to be fulfilling.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up our week. Thanks so much, Jeanine. We talked about the sun going into Pisces. I love your foggy gas lantern imagery, mostly Saturn Neptune conjoining, and then this Venus trine Jupiter. This has been a really lovely week to talk about. There's some more trickier transits coming up next week, which
Yeah.
I will get into. Shauna is going to join me for that. So we're going to I'll talk about those when they come. But for this week, thanks so much for joining me, Jeanine. If people want to get in touch with Jeanine, Jeanine does readings, is an excellent astrologer. You can find Jeanine on X or Twitter, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, and Facebook. It's
Correct.
either J Lineback. Is that right? Is your username?
Correct. Correct.
So
On
just
Facebook is the only one that's different, but if you just look up Jeanine Lineback on Facebook, you'll find me.
cool. So
There
you can
aren't
get in
too many
touch.
of us.
You're one and only, Jeanine.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm definitely a unique name organization here.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jeanine. And thanks, everybody, for listening to this weekly. And we will catch you next week. Until then,
Bye.
thank you.